Hello everyone! If you take a lot of pictures, you want to know whether you should shoot RAW or JPEG. You also want to know which of these formats is worth your while. These days, almost every single advanced digital camera you can buy shoots RAW. Let's begin with what RAW is. RAW images are also known as digital negatives and are files that have data straight from the camera image sensor. These files are unprocessed, and what that means is that the file attributes haven't been altered in any way, so they need some sort of post-processing to be presentable. RAW images preserve a lot more information than JPEGs, and that is the reason why your RAW files are always huge. They contain more color and dynamic range data. Majority of the time, RAW files consist of two parts: the raw data from the sensor and a processed JPEG file that is used to preview the image on the camera display. Now let's talk about JPEGs. The JPEG image format is the most common image format for photos. This type of file is highly compressed with a lossy compression method, which means that some information is lost from the original image file. JPEGs are flexible because different levels of compression can be used in order to get countless variations of quality and size in the final image. JPEGs are really favorable on a mainstream level because almost any device with a display on it can view them. However, there are drawbacks. I will now list the advantages of the RAW format as well as the disadvantages, followed by the advantages and disadvantages of JPEGs. Advantages of RAW. RAW files usually have higher bit depth, allowing them to store more color information. RAW files have a lot of dynamic range information. RAW files make use of lossless compression, so no strange artifacts. And all camera metadata is stored. The disadvantages are RAW files are huge in size compared to JPEGs. RAW files also require a lot of post-processing to get the desired outcome. Software capable of viewing RAW files is not common and widely available. And there is no standard RAW file format or extension. Different manufacturers use their own proprietary extensions which cannot be viewed by other cameras. Now let's move on to the advantages of JPEG files. JPEGs are always much smaller in file size. JPEGs offer more flexibility with image quality and size since you can change the level of compression you want. JPEGs are processed within the camera itself, so settings like sharpening, saturation, contrast, white balance, etc. are applied at the time of shooting. And support for JPEGs in terms of software is much higher. The disadvantages of JPEGs are, since the compression is lossy, detail is lost in the final image, and sometimes there are visible artifacts. JPEGs can only have a maximum color depth of 8-bit, which means some colors that your camera captures are simply just not presented. Because of the high processing, a lot of the final image properties like sharpness cannot be reversed. JPEGs also contain very little to no dynamic range data. So in this demonstration, I have a picture that I shot on the RAW plus JPEG mode. And what I want to show is the differences in the amount of recoverable dynamic range. First, here are the original files off the camera and you can see there's not much difference. Now here are the pictures after being taken into Lightroom and having the shadow detail lifted to the max and a slight reduction in the highlights. Both photos had the exact same settings applied. Notice how firstly we were able to get more shadow detail with the RAW file. Also, the JPEG file has some weird color artifacting on the walkway that isn't present in the RAW processed file. So which one of these formats should you shoot? Well, I recommend RAW. There's just so much more information for you to work with in your final image. You can really go in there and fine-tweak certain aspects of the image to really get a desired effect, something that just isn't possible with JPEGs. However, if you're worried about spending time having to process the images in post, then I'd suggest shooting in both RAW and JPEG, which is a mode that a lot of cameras offer. What the camera would do is it will take the RAW as normal, then straight after process it into a separate file that is also saved as a JPEG, meaning you get the best of both worlds. It's really difficult to justify shooting in just JPEG alone. The limitations are endless, but if you're a person that isn't interested in spending time editing photos, then JPEG is your best bet. All you need to do is make sure the image you want is somewhat perfectly captured at the time of shooting. Otherwise, you do not have a great deal of freedom in terms of messing around with the settings afterwards. All in all, let's try and shoot RAW, guys. It really does push the possibilities in terms of the end product that you can get. Thanks for watching, and I hope that this video was useful to you. Please leave a like or a comment and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. See you guys in the next one.